Welcome to this session where we will be starting the journey of Android, and we will get to know the Android, what the Android is, and how we can set up tools and environment so that we can build the Android application, right? So that we can share with our friends and maybe solve some problem in the future. Also, we'll also go through some core concepts, right? So that we can apply those concepts while building the application. And then you can also try setup in your system as well, so that we can have a live, a little bit building sessions for the Android application. Okay.
Let's talk about the Android, the about part, what Android is actually. Basically, Android is an open source operating system by the Google. It was not primarily from the Google, it was the other people who built Android and then they sold Android to the Google. Now Google is the official maintainer for Google Android, and there are multiple contributor to Android, and they have different part in their own company. So basically, Android is a very popular mobile operating system. It's mostly used in mobile, but it not only limited to mobile, it's also has different applications. Just like Android can be used in a car, in a watch, maybe in a TV as well. But these are the most popular way of having Android and asking Android is about the mobile part. So basically, it's open source. So other companies like Xiaomi, Oppo, they make their own changes in the Android, and they make their own OS that you might see in the different vendors of Android, right? So that's basically it. The Android is basically operating system, open source, and it's basically based on the Linux kernel, and having a different security part in it itself. Okay. Now Android is basically if we talk about the mobile part, it's basically capturing the 70% mobile market on the whole worldwide, and it has currently more than 3 billions of users using this on daily basis. And it has, as I told you again, it has different applications starting from mobile, car, watches, and TVs, or maybe some other part you can use it. Since it's open source, you can also make changes in the Android operating system and make a different feature by your own, or maybe change the look wise, the way that OnePlus do changes in their own UI. So whenever you buy OnePlus phone, they have their own UI because they have made the changes. So because they have made the changes in their own way, so that it looks different and it suits to the OnePlus. Similarly, when you buy a Xiaomi phone, you might have seen that they have their own kind of UI experience, so that you get to know, okay, this is a Xiaomi phone, right? So that's the beauty of Android. It's open source, anyone can update, share, change according to their needs, right? So that's why it's very popular. And also it is the one of the fastest updating operating system as well. Basically, each and every year you will see lots of new features from the different vendors, since it's open source, right? And now people are from all over the world making changes and updates to Android, so that it gets all new feature, if we compare to the other operating mobile system. So yeah, that's about the Android, and it basically was launched, I think, around 2007, the first beta version. And after that, like, first release was around 2008 for Android 1.0. And then from there, now we have seen in this year 2024, which is Android 14 and 15 coming up in a preview part. So each year the new version of Android is coming up with lots of new features from the user perspective as well as from the developer perspective as well. Android has a very vast, significant ecosystem, and as I said, each version brings you the new features, improvements, and APIs update for both developer sides to utilize it and to make a better application for the users, so that they have the best experience while using their system in the Android. So you might have seen Android 5, which is a Lollipop, Marshmallow, Nugget. So these are the different Android versions. In terms of users, it's KitKat, Lollipop, but in terms of developers, they have different versions as well. I'll talk about it just right now. So as I said, the naming convention in Android is for developers is different. If we talk about Android KitKat. For developer point of view, we says Android 4.4, right? And if somebody says Lollipop, in the user's perspective, which is non-developer, they will understand Lollipop, but from the Android developer perspective, it's like Android 5.0. Okay, now from starting from Android 10, now Google switched from namings like Pi, Lollipop, KitKat to the numbers itself. So now nobody calls 11 as some particular maybe candy name. It's just a number like Android 11, 12, 13, 14, and so on. Okay, so this is the naming convention Android ecosystem. Okay, let's move to the Android SDK. So far we just talk about what Android is, what is the ecosystem, what are the different versions in Android. Now we are moving forward in the terms of developers perspective, because here we are learning about the how we can get start with the Android. So we have to change the focus on the more programmatical or developer point of view. So basically Android SDK. So what Android SDK is basically a collection of tools, libraries, APIs to help developers create applications for Android. Basically this SDK will provide you all the access to the Android system so that you can use those systems to make your application works. For example, you will be using Android SDK to call the camera to capture an image. You will be using Android SDK to get the network response, which means either Wi-Fi is connected or not, this kind of stuff, all kind of things that you want to talk to systems. And by creating application, this SDK will going to help you out at providing all those APIs to you so that you can use those APIs to create Android applications. So that's basically SDK is. Now in Android SDK, it has different level. As I said, each year there will be a new update in Android, right? So they're going to be updating SDK, and whenever the SDK will get released, the new set of UIs or new set of APIs is coming up from that SDK. So let's say if it's Android 14, the API level will be the 34. So there is a difference between the Android version and the API version, which is Android SDK version. So in Android 14 we call API 34, and like if it's Android 13 we call it API 33, right? So what is the importance of this API level is basically, let's say you create an application pointing out to some particular API. Now that if the API level is 34, now if somebody has Android 15, now if I calculate, the API level will be 35, right? So, but you targeted for 34. Now your application will not work on Android 15, right? Because you have targeted for 34. So that's what we have in Android. You will specify the minimum version that your application is going to work on. We call it as a min SDK. And then there is a target SDK, which is the specific highest version, you could say, that you're going to target your application will be working on. Okay, there will be a chance where some APIs especially available in 34, but it's not available in maybe 2021, right? So you have to read the documentation whenever new SDK get released. You have to read the documentation. Either this new set of APIs is backward compatible, which means will the API will also perform the same way in the lower version of Android, right? So whenever the new API levels get public, you have to read the documentation about the compatibility of that API. Okay. Now the tools, these tools are very weapons for the developers, Android developers. It will help you create more better application and will help you out in lot of different places. For example, Android emulator. So if you don't have the physical device, it will help you create an environment like a real device in your phone, in your laptop, so that you can run your application inside your laptop itself if you don't have the physical device, right? And then next is a debugging tool. So these are tools which will help you out finding the bugs. If something is not working in your emulator or your physical device, basically in your application, you can use this logcat profiler to track what is the actual issue, so that you can fix it and make your application more better. And then there are these tools which basically automate your app builds. App builds is basically will help create your Android APK right? And this is and then other part is a Gradle. This basically help create the APK. This is the automation. So automation is basically a pipeline where you just wait for a few minutes and it will build your Android APK, and that pipeline is using this Gradle, which will create an actual APK. I know this will be a sounds very alien word to you, but it will be familiar while we are doing some practical. Okay. Now, before moving forward to a setup, where I'm going to just show you how we can create our setup for creating Android application. Do you guys have any questions on the APIs part, SDK, that what is SDK, and maybe the history of Android, or maybe any tools you can? Okay, no, awesome. I think you guys are catching up very fast. Nice. Let's go and create a setup, so that while because we first set up the our Android Studio, so that then we will go and learn about some core concept, and then we'll come back and use those concepts to create a small application. Okay. So before that, as I said, you have to have Android Studio installed. If you don't have, you can maybe go and search on Google Android Studio, and then you can download it from there. It will help you download your Android Studio, and it will automatically just show you the expected file for your system. So if you have Mac, it will show you the different executable file. If you have Windows, it will be showing a exe file. So just go to this website and just download the Android Studio. After that, if you already have the Android Studio, which is awesome, just search for Android Studio in your system and just click on the icon. It will open Android Studio, and you can click on new project, and it will open this window that will just ask you a few things. So these are basically a predefined template for you. So if you want something like bottom navigation or these things, it will create for you. You don't have to write extra code for it. But for now, I'm going to use empty activity. Okay, this activity part I will explain you later. For the beginner, let's click on this empty activity to create a new application. Click on the next button. Then in this window, which is a new project, it's going to ask you your project name. Whatever you want to write your project name, you can write. Maybe we can write about my first application, and then this is the package name. So this package name is going to be unique. So each application you see on the Play Store, they have their package name, and it's unique to their business, right? If somebody is working on maybe Microsoft, they might have package like com.microsoft. Whatever application name is their application name. So this package name is basically your company domain, you could say. And then for now, we are just using com.example.my first application. You can update your package name suitable to you. And then this is your location where you're going to save your project. And then, as I said while I was explaining you have to identify and provide the information minimum SDK, that this application that we are going to build will be at least working on this version of Android. So the minimum for now they have provided is Android 5. Why? Because you can see your app will run approximately on 99.7% of devices in whole world. So it's a recommended, or maybe you can use Android 6. It will show you the information of how much range of devices this application is going to support on. So 98% device will going to support on if you choose API 23. For this project, let's go as minimum as possible. So Android API level 21 and Android 5. Okay. Just click on finish, and it will set up all the things for you. You don't have to do anything. It's here. It's running right now to build a setup for you. Okay, and you will be seeing a different folders in the studio, and I will explain you what each folder means, so that while building your application, you have idea, okay, where you have to write your code, where you have to write or add your images in your application, right? Because sometimes you require to put images, videos in your application. So those things I will be explaining you so that you have idea, okay, which place you need to put specific images, or which place you need to put your code part. Okay. See, it's automatically set up the configuration. They have provided you two different folders. This is a script folder and this is app folder. So in this, basically this app folder is your package where you're going to write your code for your application. Okay. And then if you expand this, you will see a manifest, Kotlin plus Java, and RES. So let's go one by one, what basically these each folder means. If you see the manifest, if you open this folder, there is a one file called Android manifest. Okay. And this might look different. You might not seen this code before. So this code is basically a XML code, extensive markup language. It's just a markup language. There is no compiler to it normally. So yeah, these are basically a tags, and these are the information of tags. Okay, I'll just explain you what is the meaning of this Android manifest. Let's see. Yeah, it's already built. Okay, let's start. So this, what's the manifest? So basically, whenever you deploy your application in your phone or maybe in emulator, the Android operating system first open your Android manifest file to check what is the requirement for your application. Let's take an example of Instagram. If you install your Instagram in your phone, it will first checks what is the requirement from the Instagram. So the requirements could be, let's say Instagram wants a permission, okay, user permission of camera. So all the permission will be added here, so that operating system will know, okay, this app will require permissions of camera, maybe permission of internet, and also it will provide information of what are the different screen in your application, where you, whenever you specify this activity, which means a screen in your application. Okay, so whenever you provide the information in manifest, your operating system get to know, okay, these are the different activities you added in a manifest. And also, let's say there is a link, right, in your WhatsApp which opens in Instagram. So if you provide that link, and you have to specify something called this intent filter. So this is also give information to operating system that this link going to open in this app as well. Okay, so you might have seen, if you click on a link, it will open a multiple application to share, right? So if you provide information regarding if some links come, should open this application as well. So all the information your application is required, you have to write it here in manifest. Either it's a user permission, your linking, specifying activity, or some other icon as well. So if you see this icon, this will let operating system know this is the icon of your application. Okay, so say this Android icon is application. So whenever you install your app, you can see the icon, right? Instagram has different icon. Google Meet has different icon, right? So you have to specify the icon here basically, so that system will load the icon from this place, right? So all this information is kept in the Android manifest.xml file. Okay, this is the first thing that operating system is going to see in your application. Then it will start launching and running your application code. So this is the first file. So for now, we are not adding any kind of permission. For now, just let it be in this same form. This is the information about the application, basically saying the icon, the label, right? And either is going to support right to left layout. So you might not know about the right to left layout. Is basically this is the way in different countries application is built. So normally in India is left to right, but in, like, if you go to Middle East, there is a right to left things are there. So is your application support that? You said it true, that means yes. And your other information regarding allow backup, will this application can be backup from operating system side or not? If you say true, then operating system get to know, okay, yes, we can do it. Okay, So our Android icon, as I said, this is your application icon, which is there in your whole project, which is inside this IC launcher. If you search, this is inside this resource, but we'll come back to that later. Hope you understand the Android manifest. Okay, these are the predefined tag. You don't have to create the tags. The tags already are there. You just have to provide the values to it. Awesome. And then this is the Kotlin plus Java. Why this is Kotlin plus Java? Why not just Kotlin? Is because initially Android was building using Java language, but after some time they introduced Kotlin, maybe around 2016-17, and now you can write code in fully in Kotlin, fully in Java, but sometimes you require both because your code is still in Java and you want new language, which is Kotlin, to be there. So yeah, Android support both, so that's why it's Kotlin plus Java. And here you can see the Android test. So these are folders specifically for your test. So you can write testing codes as well to make sure your application is working as you expected. So these folders are for that. And these folder will not be included when you create your application. This will just removed by the this Android Studio. Right. So this is where you write the actual code. Your UI part, your logic part, everything will be inside this Kotlin plus Java. So this is the folder you're going to use the most. And then you have this RES. We call it as a resource folder. The short name is RES. And it has multiple folders, which has its own meaning. So this drawable is basically is the folder there that is help you add images here and also some design background part. And this basically is drawable is going to use directly in your code as well as in the layout section. There is no layout folder here, but we are going to create one. So drawable is basically something you might need to include in your app, like images and this drawable, which is this vector image. Okay. MIP or MAP is basically a folder where you can put your launcher, basically your icons as well, and it will be a different type of images. You can see it is, I think it has 5 type of images. Why it is at 5 type? Because you can see Android has multiple phones, right? It's coming from the small device to high devices, where means lower device does not have to show the higher resolution images, right? So if you have a phone which is a small phone, it doesn't have to show like very high resolution because there is no point to it, right? So if it's a small device, it's automatically going to pick from this HDPI, and if it's a more higher resolution device, then this icon will going to take up. You can see here this is a kind of blurry, but if you launch your application in your small device phone, this is not going to be a blurry. This is going to be look good. Since it's a high resolution device, definitely this mid PI will going to look like blurry. And this access HDPI, if you have very high resolution of phone like Samsung phone, which is a very like Galaxy's phone, which is a very high resolution phone, system will automatically take this this launcher IC launcher image from your application to show instead of picking HDPI. Okay, we provide this information so that it should be as minimal effect on the phone itself. We cannot provide access HDPI in a lower end device because first CPU will not able to load this high resolution of image, right? So that image might get crash because you could see the size as well, right? If you see the HDPI, it's 1.4 KB here, and if I see the high resolution images, it is a 3.84. Okay, and then we have the values in this folder. We create a different XML files. So colors are basically is to providing a color to your whole application. Okay, different color you can provide for your UI. You're going to put the colors here. Okay, and for strings you can put the values here. String, your application title name, your button name in your application. So each string you're going to use, put your string in this resource file. Why we are going to put this in resource file is because, let's say currently this is in English, right? But you want your application to a different language like Hindi, Malayalam, or maybe Tamil. So you will create a different string folder, and based on your phone system language, operating system will choose that particular string.xml to get the values of string. Okay, so that's why we create this string XML. And this is theme is basically your phone your UI. It has different properties, so just avoid it for now. So the source folder is basically for providing a resources to the code part. Okay, and then last we have this Gradle script. This will be a very complicated to understand, but it's basically is to help you build your whole APK when you're done with your coding. Okay, there are other applications of this Gradle script, but for now just assume this Gradle script is there to build your APK. Okay, awesome. Currently we are not using any kind of Java for now. We are strict with the Kotlin. Hope you guys have few small ideas of what Kotlin is, so that while we are coding you will get to know what we are doing in the application. So far, anyone has any questions? Server for Android build. Okay, this. So you can create your database using a Room library, but so there are two ways. First of all, we have SQLite database in Android, and now we are using Room, which is a part of an Android SDK. It's a separate library, but yeah, you can use the Room to create a database where you can provide the query of getting information from the database, maybe insertion, deletion, updation, these kind of queries. Server, yes, you can create server as well. You could have seen the application of having a talk between two applications. For example, if I wanted to build an application where I can share my data to someone, I will create basically a server from my side, which is a socket connection. It's depend on what kind of server you wanted to create, either a real-time communication server like socket, or if you wanted to create a HTTP server, which will just take a request and provide the response. So you can create those things using the I think service. You can use your Java, basically socket, or you could use a library as well. I think it's a bit much of advanced topics here. So people who don't have HV knowledge about Kotlin, yet you can also build the basic app. Yes, if you don't have a knowledge about Kotlin, I will tell you a little bit of Kotlin as well while we writing a code. I hope so far you understand the folders, and we are mostly going to write a code in the Kotlin plus Java and resources as well. Let's move to some core concepts so that we can use this core concept to create our first application. In Android, there is a concept called activity and lifecycle. Next, we are going to learn about the layouts and UI, and this is what we are going to do in practical. And then we will also do event handling. Same, we are going to do this on Android Studio to have our hands-on practice. And then introduction to state management. This might go in a little advanced, but okay, we'll see this one as well. Let's start with the activity lifecycle. So what activity is? The basically activity represents a single focus screen in Android application. So you could say a page in a website. Okay, if you see a screen on your phone, it could be basically activity. Okay, so activity just represent a screen, single focus screen to the user. You can create a different screen, but activity is there for creating a screen. Okay, that's the very simple example to understand activity. Before going that, I will also explain you one more thing. Since if you talk about mobile is a very heavy constrained device, which means a one person which is having Android might have 1 GB of RAM, maybe 10 GB of hard disk, and one person can have 12 GB of RAM or maybe 1 TB of hard disk, right? But my application should work on both the devices. So we have to prepare for a worst case scenario. If you remember a time, we also have 300 MB of RAM as well. So from a developer perspective, we should aim for the lowest and the lowest part of using of memory of operating system, because the user might have a small device, but he or she can have multiple application running in the phone, and we only get a small amount of space from the operating system. If your app does not behave for the optimization way, system might kill your app to make the system running, right? So we are very heavy constrained. Okay, so keep it in mind whenever you build Android application, we have to optimize for the application as well. So Activities is basically a single screen, and let's move ahead. And we also call it an entry point. So whenever we click on the app icon, it will open a screen. So activity is an entry point for the application or interaction for the app as well. The examples, as I said, any screen, login screen, your main screen of your list item, detail screen, displaying item details. Example could be Amazon detail screen. Any screen you see on the phone, it is activity. Okay, what is the responsibility of the activities? Is basically manage the UI, show the UI to the user, whatever you have built in your app, and then handle the user interaction as well. So whenever somebody clicks on some buttons, maybe provide some gestures like left swipe and right swipe, any kind of input through keyboard or anything, the activity will handle those interaction as well. And then also manage the app state. So whenever your application is running and something interrupted your application, could be maybe somebody call you, right? And you are running your application, activity will also manage your app state, so that while you're on your phone, your data, whatever we are showing on the activity or on the screen, will not get lost. So activity will be responsible to handling those kind of state as well. And then there is a life cycle. See, each screen or each applications has their own life cycle. So applications life cycle is different, and screen or activity life cycle is different. So for now we are talking about the screen life cycle. So life cycle is basically in a state of your screen, right? So these are the callbacks method from the system, which will tell you what is the current state you are in. So a life cycle will tell you just what is the state of your screen. Okay, so these are different life cycle callbacks. I will not, like, it's very huge flow chart. Just for the understanding, just understand this. Whenever you entered in application, your screen visible, right? So it start from create, start, on resume. Resume is basically where your user is on your application and interacting with your app. So that's basically on resume. I will tell you this while we are building the application. So that's the activity and its life cycle. We have to understand the life cycle so that we can perform certain action based on the life cycle. Just for the text, I written it like the activity lifecycle defines how activity behave as it is created, run, pause, and even destroyed. The system manages this to optimize the resource uses. Because let's say if you are running your application and you are consuming database, which is a public database, and when your application or your screen get killed, you should also release your access on the database, because other application might need it, right? So we use this application or activity lifecycle to handle this kind of stuff. Now layout and UI. Let's go to the Android Studio and let's maybe create this UI, a small UI, which is we're going to write edit text. Okay, and we will be adding a one button which will update the text. This is Android Studio. Okay, first let's go to the resource file. Now currently we don't have any layout file, so we have to create a layout. If you want to create a UI, we have to create a layout basically in XML. Now there are other ways of creating a UI itself, which is a compose. Right now I'm not going to like go into the compose part because it's now it's people are using it, but still in this talk we are not going to talk about the compose. We are here to talk about XML, the traditional way of writing UI. Okay, you can create a new Android resource maybe by clicking on right clicking on this new and the Android resource file. Now in this dialog, you can see the file name. Maybe I can write my activity first layout, and then you have to click on this values. This is resource type, and it should be a layout. Layout, as I said, is basically the folder for a UI of your application. Now there is no layout folder right now, but if you click on OK, it will create everything for you. So if I click on OK, you can see the layout folder has been created and the name of your file is activity first layout.xml. So currently we are using XML to create a UI. Now, this is very interesting. So there are two things in the UI. First we call layout, second we call component. So layout is basically things that you cannot see, but things that you can see on the screen is a component. For example, in any application, you might see button, you might see a text. You can see here, right? This is a button, this is a text. So these are the components. The way this whole thing is arranged, it's because of layout. Okay, layout is there to arrange these components. It could be linear, maybe it could be horizontal, vertical, and maybe grid layout, right? In maybe if you go to Play Store, you could have seen multiple grid icons there, right? So that's because of a layout. Layout is there to arrange those components. So if you, this is also a grid, right? So layout is there to help make this arrangement, and component is what we see on visually on the screen. So basically text, this icon, maybe this search bar, these all are the components. Okay, so in the UI, two things you should remember: layout and component. So let's write a text view. We return a text view. We have to provide this ID. Why we require this ID? This ID will help connect from XML file to a Kotlin file. So that Kotlin could connect this through this ID, and it can access the text view and can update the property of text view, because we might need to update text in code, right? So okay, I think we have few questions, but let me finish this. So this ID is there to connect between your Kotlin code to your XML component and layout. Each layout and component, they both have IDs as well. And each component is very special. Also same goes to linear, every kind of layout. Each layout and component has their own properties. For example, text view can have text, which you can see here. Let me zoom in. Here, this is a preview of XML. So whatever you're going to write here, this is going to show in the preview. So in the properties, there is an Android text. So these properties are already there. You just have to provide the values to it. So text is there. And then this is a text size, that how much size of this text is going to be, and text color, right? These properties is to arrange this component to the layout. Okay. Now this is a linear layout. So linear layout is basically provide two kind of layout. Either it can arrange your component in horizontal form or vertical form. So currently it's added as a orientation as a vertical. So let's say if I add something like button as a match wrap content, this size is basically how much width and height we want to give to our component is what we are specifying. You can say wrap content. It means whatever the this content is, you know, based. So let's say if I add the text as a hello world Ankit, so according to the size of the text, this component will also get increase. If I say the specific, if I provide a specific value like 100, and also 100, not 100, I think, let's say 20. See, I have the content larger, but the whole size of component is small. So value is there, but since you provide a limited width and height of this component, it is limited. So wrap content says whatever the content of this component, it should increase accordingly. So that's what the wrap content is. Okay. Okay. Let's have some questions before moving ahead. Okay, after selecting new project, can someone tell me steps? Yeah, we will be doing that in a few minutes, this part. Again, I will help you set up a new project and creating a small application. It's better to provide steps or sheet of process. Yeah, we'll be doing this in some time. Now you see this button, we call it as a wrap content. Yeah. Oh, in this resource file, maybe you can right click on this and click on the new. Maybe right click or left click. I'm using Mac, so it's a single click. If you click on resource, it will open a new dialog saying new, and then you will see Android resource file as an option of list. If you click on Android resource file, it will pop up a new dialog asking you the file name, and then your file name could be like, it should be a small snake case like activity underscore first. It should not be a large or number. Okay, so activity underscore, and if any file name you wanted to give, the file name could be anything. Activity I'm just writing because of we are working on an activity. File name could be anything. Maybe you can write first and then choose, you might have seen second column, which is resource type. In the resource type, there is a value. Click on it. It will open your option list. You can see the resource type. There is a value right side of it. Yeah, click on layout and just click on OK, and it will create a layout file for you. Sure. Awesome. So yeah, you can see the layout is arranging my text view and my button in a vertical fashion. If I change this to horizontal, let's see what happens. You can see my components are getting arranged in horizontal fashion. So layout is there to arrange your components, and component is there to show UI for the user. Now button has also have text. Now button can also have text, right? So it says click me, and we have to, if we wanted to access this button in a Kotlin, we have to provide the ID. So we have added Android ID. You have to exactly write this @ plus ID colon, and then the name of your ID. ID name could be anything based on the project you are working. So let's say if I say btn underscore show me, so that while writing in activity, I got to know, okay, this is a button which is a show me button, or maybe click me. Okay, so the naming convention is fully depend on you. Okay, nice. Yeah, this as a warning, it will also ask you to write this string in your string, which is inside a values section. Okay, so as a best practices, whenever you are done with your layout, push all your text string value to your strings.xml. Okay, maybe we can put it here, right here. Just copy and paste your text, go to strings, just follow the similar steps. String, add a string tag, provide a name, and then colon. Name could be anything. Let's say my title name, and then bracket. Now in this is the value. So whatever value you will provide, it will assign the value to the components. So let's see the thing in action. The title name, right? You provided the string as a title name. Now let's go back to the layout, remove this, add string underscore, whatever title name or whatever name you have provided to the string, just write the value, right? You can see the title name, and this will fetch the value, which is a hello world Ankit. Okay, you have to write like this in a string. I will not going to do for button. You can maybe do it for yourself, so that you also get to know how things works, right? Okay, so this is a small UI. If we click on this button, we will going to update a value inside text view from the code. Okay, hope you understand like layout, what is the layout and what is the components and layouts. There are a lots of different component provided by the Google itself. You can maybe explore more while you are building applications, and there are much more layouts as well. They have different properties. As I said, linear layout has a property of arranging elements in a horizontal fashion or vertical fashion. There are layouts who can maybe arrange this based on the other components relativity. So each layout has its own functionality. So maybe you can try out the different layouts. Okay, so this is a basic layout, and let's move to the activity part. Okay, so currently it's using composable, but we are not using compose. We are using the XML file. So for XML, you have to connect or fetch your XML file in your activity so that it will connect your XML file to your Kotlin or Java code base. So how would you do that is, well, binding, is it binding on? Let me check one thing, guys. Is it binding on here? The data binding, your activity. Layout we have to write a traditional way. Inflator dot rom. I will explain this whole code to you in just a moment. And then, okay. Now, what we are doing here is we are connecting our XML to our Kotlin code. So our UI is there in XML, right? And we have to have access to these components so that we can also update the properties of this component from Kotlin. So the connection, how we are building the connection is basically from this code base, which is layout inflator. It's a class from Android SDK itself. What it will do is it will take your activity and it will also point out to the XML file where you have written your UI code, and it will assign the value in the binding. And then this val is basically like creating a binding as a constant. It will not change. You cannot reassign binding. So val is there is to create a constant variable, and this class layout has from method. It's like from which screen you want to inflate your UI on. So that's basically from is used for. So we are using this activity, right? So that's why we added this is a keyword which is pointing out the object of your activity, sorry, object of your class, because see, main activity is a class here, right? And this dot sign is the extending. You might have seen in Java there is a extend, right? So we are doing inheritance here. We are extending it to the component activity. You have to extend. So whenever you create an activity, it should extend to a component activity or activity. Okay, why we need activity here is, see, when this application is going to deploy in your phone, the system will give you some callback. What are the callback? Is your lifecycle callback. So there is an on create here. Wait. Here. In the activity, you have method called on create, which is, I think, oh, sorry, it's already there. You have on stop method, override method, and then you have on pause, and then you have on resume. Okay, you can see these are the already override method from this activity class. So you have to extend this class activity so that you will get this callback. Because see, in Android you don't have main function, which you normally might have seen in your C++, where your execution get begins. But here there is no main function. It's just a callback from our operating system. Operating system will call you on this method automatically. Like this method will get called from the system itself, and this code will start getting executed because there is no main function here. Now, when will this on create method is get called? First time, whenever user clicks on the icon, the activity will be in on create state, and in whole life cycle of this activity, while user is on your screen, this method is going to call once in a lifetime. Now if user removes and comes back to your screen, this is not going to call. It's only been called when it's first user click on your icon, your app icon, or maybe you come to this screen. Now this on stop method, it can call multiple times based on the situation. For example, let's say I'm currently in my app screen and I switch to WhatsApp, and then when I come back, it might be that on stop will get called again. Okay, so this method can get called again, because on stop getting called whenever user leaves your application by the system. Okay, this method will call from the system whenever somebody leaves your whole application to another application. And then again, instead of on create, where it will go is on start. Okay, this on start method is get called whenever somebody is come from another application to your application. Okay, it's not removed from recent, it's still in recent, just user switch back to your application again, then you will get call in your on start. Okay, also see, because why we are writing this code in on create, because this is very resource heavy application code. If you write this code in your on start method, because as I said, this method is called from system as well, right? If I write like this, it will work, there is no problem with it, but the problem is it will consume a lot of resources of the system, right? And as I said in the beginning, phone is very memory constraint and CPU constraint, all type of constraint is there. So you have to write the specific method to a specific lifecycle method so that your application is working smooth. So this is a very heavy CPU kind of stuff. So you put this in the on create, so it should only be called once your application is created or your activity is created. Okay, other path you can also put in on start, there's no problem, but while connecting your XML to your Kotlin, put this in a on create. It's a recommended method. Okay, now we have this binding with us. Now from this binding, you can call your components ID and you can update the values on those. Okay, so we have binding dot. If I click on dot, you can maybe root view. Wait, button. r.id.text view. Okay, now what we are doing is, from this binding, there is a method called find view by ID. View is basically each component we call in Android a view. This is also a view, this is also a view. Okay, we are finding that view from a ID that we have given in this layout file, right? So you have given text view as ID, this button click me as ID, right? So you have to provide the ID here, and this is a type system. So we are changing, because see, find view ID, just finding a view. You don't know either it's a button or it's a layout or it's a text view. So you have to provide a name that what kind of component or layout you are trying to access. So that's why I added text view. So let's say if I think this should be a text view. Text view. Let's say now I wanted to access button. So write button, and then now instead of this text view, I'm going to write button because I need access of button, and my IDs will be r.id dot the button click me. Okay, so it will give me access of button. Now I can change or update the property of the button by using Kotlin code. Okay, why we need Kotlin access is because, let's say, if I wanted to listen on button that if somebody clicks on it, performs a certain action. Okay, to provide this kind of logic, we cannot write in XML, right? Because there is a no logic part, because there is a no code here. It's just a markup language. It's just a tag there. There is no logic you can perform. Logic you can perform in Kotlin. That's why we are getting the access from the layout and then performing the logic in a Kotlin or Java file. So we can perform the logic like set listener, on click listener. Okay, this on click listener will this you can see this close bracket, right? Curly braces. This we call a callback. So this, whatever code you write this, it will get called or it will run whenever somebody clicks on the button. Okay, this again, this will call from the system. You don't have to do anything. System will call this this itself, and whatever code you have written here will start getting executed. So let's say if any user click on the button, I want this text view to update. So this text view dot hello world maybe to you. So this will get updated in the UI. You understand, right? So we first get the access of the component, and then we can listen to the click listener, and then we can update the text. Okay, you can do anything. Maybe you can hide this text view as well. You can say visibility equal to view dot invisible. So what this code will do is, if I click on the button, it will just hide the this UI on the screen. Okay, because sometimes if we do in the application as well, sometimes we wanted to hide something if certain action get performs, right? So that I wanted to do here is, whenever user is click on it, it will first update the text and it will then hide it. Now it will not, you will not see this in action. Like you cannot see the updated text because it happens so fast, because application runs so fast. You will not see the changes from hello world Ankit to hello world to you, because it will run in a milliseconds. Okay, but whenever user click on it, it will just disappear from the screen. Okay, cool. Let's run this once and let's see the layout connection and what is the visible on the screen. Before that, I also wanted to help you out here. So we have this section in this right, maybe right middle or right center, you can see the device manager here, right? If you click on this, you might have nothing here in the list. So this is basically, these are the emulators. Let's say if I don't have the physical device, we will create an emulator to run our application in a virtual Android device. Okay, if you don't have, click on this plus button, click on this create virtual device, and then it will show you what kind of screen size you want, what is the name of your phone, what is the resolution you want, and then what is the density you want. Okay, so these are the options you will get when open it. You can also create a different kind of emulators. If you are building application for tablet, you can choose tablet. Maybe you can choose your watch, your desktop, TV, automotive, and legacy. All kind of emulator is available to you. You can create based on the the device you are building for. So currently we are building for mobile. So I'm choosing this Pixel 6. Okay, for now it is a size of 6.4 and this is the resolution. I think this is full HD 420 dpi. Click on next. Now you can also provide what kind of OS you want in this device. Okay, so as I said, each version has different uh, because Android has multiple version, right? So you might want to check maybe on API 28, which is Android Pie, Oreo. This is Lollipop, Marshmallow. You can see the version here as well. Android 5.1, 6.0, 8.0, right? So maybe let's choose Pie, which is Android 9, and then click on next. Then you have these options. Either you want your startup orientation like font to be in portrait mode or landscape mode. You can choose based on your testing. And then there's a show advanced section where you can do some cool things as well. Let's say if you wanted to increase the RAM of your phone, you can increase here. Currently I think it's if you click on MB, it will show a different type of MB, KB, GB types. If I click on GB, it's a 2 GB RAM by default provided to the emulator. You can update, basically you can update it from 2 to 4, and you can see the internal storage as well. It is 2048. Again, it's a 2 GB. If I convert, let's say click on GB here to 2 GB, you can maybe give it to 4 GB, and maybe you can provide the heap memory as well to make your phone faster. Let's say if you wanted to make if you wanted to test your application on the lower end device, you can provide a lower RAM here to test, okay, how my application will be working on lower RAM, if it's a lower storage as well. So you can update here. Now click on finish. It will finish it and it will add it in a list. Okay, now this is the current or new one that we have created. Just click on this play button and it will start your wait. You see, it will just start ADB, and this is how it is getting started here. Okay, once it will load, it will also show here at, if you can see my cursor on the top center, it will show the name of your device, which is Pixel 6 API 28. This is the name, Pixel 6 API 28. I also have another device which is I already opened. If you click on this drop down, you can see the running devices section. This is Pixel 8 Pro API 31. Here also, if you have connected your phone, it will show here itself. Click on this this scrollable part and it will show you your device name, and then select in which device you wanted to run your application. I am selecting this API 66 API 28 and just click on this run button, and it will automatically just run everything and create a APK and deploy in your phone also. So these things will get, everything will get done automatically. You don't have to do anything. So if I click on this play button, so it start building the Gradle. As I said you in the starting, right, Gradle is used to build your APK. So yeah, this is building, and if you think it should be in seconds or minutes, it will build everything and it create an APK and deploy in your emulator, or if you have phone connected, in your phone as well. If you wanted to see what is building, you can click on this this hammer icon, which is a build, and you can see these things, what's going on in building. Okay, I think we got some issue. Oh, I think we have used some API, which is depending on some newer version of the Android. Let's maybe remove that API for now. Cortex, we don't need this. No. So this section is basically, let's say if somebody has their own SDK. Now, as I said in the starting, that Android has SDK, right? But not only Android create a SDK, other companies also create SDK. So if you wanted to use other companies' code, you have to write those things here in dependency section. Okay, like Facebook has their own code that you might want to use, and they have created SDK for it. You can use those SDK and libraries in this section. Let's maybe run again. Hope anything should happen. In the starting, as I also said, whenever new API comes, please read the documentation to check if it's compatible with the older version of your phone or not. Now see, launching on devices. Let's see if it's not get crash or anything. Yeah, sorry for the bad UI here, but yeah, basically in the future you can change a lot of things. But yeah, you can see it's installed in your phone and it's running up and running in your phone. So if I click back, and we can see our application name as well, right? And then the icon that we have provided in the manifest, which is, you can see here itself. Okay, and this is basically entry point for your app, and it will first launch your activity. How it's not knows that main activity is the activity or first activity it's going to open. This information we have provided in a manifest section. If you go to manifest section, you can see there is a filter applied that this is the main and launcher, which means this will be the first activity that user is going to see. Okay, if you apply this intent filter or this code, the system knows whenever user clicks on this icon, it will open this activity, main activity, because we have also provided .main here. Okay, and then when it will open, as I said, the lifecycle it's getting started. So on create will get called from system and this code will start getting executing. Now let's click on this again. You have see hello world Ankit. If I click on again, you can see the text has been disappeared, right? Because if I provide any inputs, now this section is gone because we have write the code for it, right? The basic application to build to check UI and some handling of user actions. A quick question from Siddharth. Let's see. Okay, value for this minimum SDK can provide 21. There is no problem. What is the difference between on stop and on pause function activity? Okay. In simple terms, let's see from example. I'm on my screen, but let's say some notification comes in the picture. Now user cannot interact or cannot click on this button, right? Now some else application, either it's from system or maybe some other application. For example, let's say Truecaller, just call cutted Truecaller shows its own window, right? Either it's from other application or from the system. Whenever user cannot perform any action on your screen, it is in on pause state, on pause. Okay, whenever user cannot perform any action, this is in on pause state. Whenever our UI is not visible to user, for example this case, our application is running in the background but I cannot see the UI. Now it means it's an on stop. Understand? Whenever the UI is not visible to the user, this on stop is getting called. Whenever UI is visible but I cannot perform any action, on pause is there. The very good example is whenever you use Amazon Prime and you are watching a movie, if some notification comes, the movie is paused, right? You can see the movie is paused. They are using this callback method. So whenever the on pause is getting called from system, they just pause their video. And whenever it comes to the in on resume, which is user can perform actions, they again start the video. See, this is the application. There could be multiple applications you can perform. Awesome. How to build APK which are responsive on all devices on different sizes. Okay, so yeah, you can use size here, and whenever we create our layout, make sure you provide a specific. You don't provide specific width and height. If you provide in a DP section, so whenever your application runs on the higher resolution device, the system will create it, like you don't have to do anything. System will create like on behalf of you that much size of UI on that phone. So let's say my click button is size of this, but if I move from this large phone to smaller phone, it automatically gets smaller down. So you don't have to do anything. Just make sure that try not to provide a specific value just try to use match parent, which is the highest possible width and height that this component can take, or use wrap content. If you use these two, most of the times you are good to go with any phone, any kind of device, no problem with that. Yeah, I think that's it for this basics part. And these are some resources that is, I think, good for beginners, which is first of all YouTube videos of Android test, an official website. It has all the videos, all the documentation just to get started with the Android, and how you can access database. Maybe you want to call some API from server to get data. All the things are there in the official website. So like if you wanted to start from Android, there's a huge community as well. If you have stuck anywhere while creating application, there are tons of people are there to help you out, and we have very good community in Android. Everyone, either they are from Google or maybe from Facebook or somebody from Gojek like me, they will very happy to help you out. Cool then. Thanks a lot again, Raja, to having me in this talk. And thanks everyone. Hope you learned something, maybe 10-20% or something. Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. Special thanks to you, Ankit, for taking out time from your schedule and having this workshop. For everyone out there, remember one thing, that no one learns everything in a single day. This workshop was just conducted to give you a foundation, and practice is the only key to excel. So just stay consistent and keep learning.